And again, I have to ask, where's Will Smith when you need him?
Imagine a politician calling the cops on a late-night comedian simply because he's telling a lighthearted joke that ruffled up her feathers. Although this may sound like a scene from a TV show, it's what our world has become. And it all started with a joke on the late-night talk show Jimmy Kimmel Live. Kimmel chose to mock Georgia Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has gained prominence for controversial ideas and comments. Jimmy Kimmel is well known for roasting public figures, especially politicians. He does this all the time, often using comedy to make a point about what's happening in government. But what happens when the powerful fight back not with counter-arguments, but with police reports?
What a day. I have to tell you, what a night and what a day. I have the weirdest life, I really do. Once again, I find myself in the middle of a brouhaha as I appear to have run afoul of probably the worst woman in American politics, Marjorie Taylor Greene, the congressperson from the 14th District of Georgia, is unhappy. She's specifically unhappy with me. She's had a tough couple of days. On our show Tuesday night, MTG, Clan Mom as we call her, earlier in the day, called 3 of her fellow Republicans pro-pedophile for supporting Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson's nomination to the Supreme Court, which is lovely, a lovely thing to say. So I made a joke. I said, where is Will Smith when you need him? And the audience laughed, and then so she saw it.
During his joke, Kimmel referenced Will Smith's iconic Oscar slap at Marjorie Taylor Greene, sometimes known as MTG. The lady has made news for her outspoken beliefs and divisive statements. Kimmel's joke pointed fingers at Greene's over-the-top statements about her fellow politicians. It was classic late-night humor, the kind that pokes the powerful without crossing the line into malice. But apparently Greene didn't see it that way at all.
And she decided she was going to try to get some political mileage out of this. This is what she does instead of working. She tweets. After she saw it, she tweeted, ABC contacts my employer. This threat of violence against me by Jimmy Kimmel has been filed with the Capitol Police. She called the police and reported this. Not only did she call the police, called the same police she voted against giving a Congressional Gold Medal to for defending our Capitol against the insurrection she helped incite on January 6th. That's who she called, the people she wanted to defund. It's amazing how quickly you can go from these liberals who can't see anything anymore to, what'd you say? I'm calling the cops. Must be that cancel culture they're always talking about.
This is a politician that has openly endorsed conspiracy theories, including the controversial accusation that Jewish space lasers are causing California wildfires.
I'll keep my Jewish space laser set to gazpacho in case. And by the way, it wasn't just Marjorie who's all fired up. I got mean tweets from Diamond and Silk, which hurts because, you know, I'm a big fan. And even the then molester Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz weighed in on this. He wrote, note to Jimmy Kimmel, not only would Marjorie Taylor Greene's husband make quick work of you, but Rep. MTG herself would make quick work of you. Kimmel would not last too long if he were interested in engaging in unprovoked, terrible violence against this congresswoman. Okay, what are you suggesting, another threesome? I don't know, but...
Crazy, right? She's made provocative remarks about her co-workers and supported aggressive speech against her opponents.
How many more people do we have to watch die every single day in America? How long are you going to let this go on?
Congresswoman, let me assure you that we're not letting it go on. We are fighting this.
No, I reclaim my time. You're a liar.
Now, when the tables are turned and she's the focus of a harmless joke, she plays the victim card. Kimmel had also roasted Greene's latest book, MTG, saying it had a little bit of everything. It has revisionist history, conspiracy theories, Jewish space lasers, and of course Marge's well-known recipe for gazpacho police in a petri dish. Kimmel joked that the book had garnered several poor internet reviews, which I guess is what happens when you tell your supporters that reading makes them gay.
I'd like to point out to my Democrat colleagues that there is no Republican member of Congress that condones the attack on the Capitol on January 6th. I was also a victim in this chamber when it happened, and we are very offended at your constant attacks on us for claiming we had anything to do with it. So that needs to stop.
Oh my God, we got a Karen in Congress now. She's so awful, just terrible. And by the way, what she said is interesting because yesterday we learned one of her closest friends and allies guy named Anthony Aguero was in the Capitol during the attack January 6th. This is a guy who, when she was banned from Facebook, she appeared on his Facebook account. They're very good friends, but she's offended because she had nothing to do with what happened. And not only that, one of her other close friends is the guy who actually planned and incited the riot at the Capitol. This guy. There they are standing right next to each other. They're saying the cost to repair the damage that these rioters did.
Kimmel also stated that one of Green's most recent terrible ideas was to form a January 6th committee to probe the January 6th committee. He pondered and do January 6th all over again. I guess it is fantastic. Did she have to write a book? Could we not have given her some crayons and a Denny's placemat to get it out of her system? Green shot back against Kimmel on X, requesting an invitation to the concert. She asked, "Hey, @JimmyKimmel, since most of your show content is your non-stop lies about me, why don't you have me on your show? I'll bring you a copy of my book, and we can chat about what needs to happen to save America." Kimmel's comedy skit wasn't anything shocking by his standards. He referenced Green's reputation for making outlandish comments, some of which had caused major public backlash. Kimmel specifically mocked her for some of her more ridiculous statements, and the way she frequently appeared to be neck-deep in drama, both within and outside of Congress. Kimmel's piece, which was a funny parody of a politician who was making headlines for all the wrong reasons, was standard fare. Has everyone familiar with his work now, Kimmel frequently makes jokes about politicians of both parties, regardless of their political affiliations. It is his method of drawing attention to the ridiculousness of politics. Even though he has a sharp sense of humor, it is all part of the appeal of late-night television. But Green was not laughing when she heard this joke. She adopted a far more serious stance than most prominent politicians do when they are ridiculed on late-night television. Green made the unexpected decision to notify the Capitol Police about Kimmel's joke. Yes, you heard that correctly. She even went so far as to submit a report, alleging that Kimmel's joke endangered her safety. Oof. This is when things start to get a bit complicated. Being vocal has always been part of Green's public character, particularly when it comes to her criticism of the media and what she refers to as cancel culture. She regularly asserts that the left-wing media targets her for voicing her opinions, and she's typically the first to speak out against others who lose their voices due to their beliefs. Yet here she was, reporting a comedian to the authorities over a joke. To put it mildly, this felt a little ironic. Green has, after all, built her career on igniting controversy with her strong political opinions and audacious and occasionally rude comments. She has openly endorsed a number of conspiracy theories and suggested that many of her enemies are threatening to quiet her. She didn't appear to be willing to accept the joke when it was directed at her, though, when the role was reversed. Green's response demonstrated a degree of hypocrisy, in addition to being an overreaction. Playing the victim and taking a joke far too seriously, she is quick to accuse others for being too sensitive. Nobody failed to notice the irony. Kimmel, however, was not going to let things slide. He responded in his usual comedic fashion. As you can imagine, Kimmel didn't take Green's complaint lying down. Instead of apologizing or backing off, Kimmel used it as more material for his show. And if there's one thing Kimmel does well, it's making light of a serious situation, especially when he thinks it's a bit ridiculous. Kimmel mocked Green for her over-the-top reaction. He made jokes about her going to the Capitol Police over a simple joke. He pointed out how silly it was that a politician who has spent so much time mocking others and making controversial statements could suddenly play the victim when a comedian poked fun at her. Kimmel quickly pointed out the hypocrisy. He said, "Officer, I'd like to report a joke," and a sarcastic tweet.
Cancel culture they're always talking about. So after processing the fact that someone called the police on me, believe it or not, this has never happened to me in my life. I tweeted back, I wrote, "Officer, I'd like to report a joke." A lot of people liked it, they hit like, which triggered her, I guess, the sweet little snowflake, because she tweeted again this afternoon. She wrote, "You weren't joking. You hide your misogyny and your racism behind your jokes on ABC. This was a dog whistle to the violent left to assault me or worse, and you're," misspelled "you're," of course, "already inspiring fantasies of violence against me. How many new death threats will I get that are your fans?"
In addition to being a shrewd retort, his statement revealed a more significant reality about how thin-skinned certain prominent people have become. In addition to being humorous and sardonic, Kimmel's remarks had a solemn undertone. He was highlighting the political contradictions at play and the double standards that seem to exist for certain people in power. Kimmel didn't just stop with the police report, he kept going. He mocked the idea that someone like Green, who has established a career for herself by promoting radical viewpoints and inciting controversy, would be threatened by a late-night joke. He derided the idea and pointed out that it was even worse that someone in Congress, of all people, could be so vulnerable as to feel threatened by a lighthearted joke.
Well, that's nice. She thinks I have fans. I guess that's good. But now listen, not only don't I condone death or any kind of threats against anyone, especially since I get dozens of them a week myself from the sickos who align with you, I also find it very rich that a person who did this in her campaign ad is suddenly whining about fantasies of violence. How does this even compute? This woman, you may remember, she's the one who endorsed fringe conspiracy theories and repeatedly indicated support for executing prominent Democratic politicians. Now she's dialing 911 because she got made fun of. She's a snowflake and a sociopath at the same time. A snowciopath, as we nobody does anything.
Kimmel couldn't pass up the opportunity to criticize Green's work. He noted that if Green could not take a joke on TV, she might not be cut out for politics. It seems the more Kimmel reacted, it appeared like Green's response was simply fanning the flames. But Green was not about to let Kimmel get the final say. After Kimmel's mocking reaction aired, Green retaliated with even greater rage. She reacted to Twitter, labeling Kimmel a washed-up comedian who was simply looking for publicity. She accused him of making unfunny remarks and said that he was assaulting her just because he disagreed with her viewpoints. Her tweet no longer focused only on the comedy. Green was now making it personal. She portrayed Kimmel as being out of touch with the American people and using his position to advance a leftist agenda. In short, she said that Kimmel was no longer a comedian, but rather a spokesperson for the left-wing elite. But here's the thing, Green's attack on Kimmel did not appear to have the intended impact. Instead of backing down, Kimmel tripled down on his critique. He reacted to Green's post with even more jokes, emphasizing how out of date her remarks were. He pointed out that as a public person, she should be able to take some criticism. After all, it is part of the job. However, instead of laughing it off, she opted to exacerbate the issue by assaulting him directly. It was now obvious that this was more than just a lighthearted argument. It had escalated into a full-fledged back and forth. Green's personal assault on Kimmel in an attempt to quiet her only seemed to strengthen his resolve to continue mocking her, and Kimmel's crowd appeared to support him more and more the more she reacted. Kimmel made the decision to escalate the argument as it went on. Instead of just mocking Green's reactions, he turned it into an absurd parody. He imagined what it would be like if he were to report Green to the Justice League. Yeah, the superhero team from DC Comics. In this bit, Kimmel sent a mock letter to Batman, telling him that Green was acting like a classic comic book villain. He compared her to characters like the Joker and the Penguin, exaggerating her over-the-top behavior for comedic effect.
I feel like maybe other Republicans like having her around to make the rest of them seem normal. And by the way, if she's gonna report me to the police, if that's how she wants to play it, I'll report you right back. And I won't go to the police, I'll go to the Justice League, okay? In fact, bring me my writing desk, will you? Thank you. And Guillermo, thank you. Bring me my writing chair. And Jeff, if you would, I'd love to have some writing music while I do this, because I'm writing a letter. I'm going right to the top. Dear Batman, how's it hanging? Knowing you, probably upside down.
Kimmel's decision to escalate the absurdity by involving Batman was very strategic. By parroting Green's overreaction, he exposed the fragility of her position without ever directly attacking her. His faux letter to the Justice League was a stroke of genius. I loved how Kimmel used this moment to make a big point. It wasn't just about one politician calling the cops over a joke. It was about the ridiculousness of treating comedy as a threat. And honestly, it was refreshing. In a time where debates often turn toxic, Kimmel's approach reminded us that humor can still be a powerful tool for critique. Kimmel's playful take at Green through the Justice League was his way of showing just how ridiculous her reaction had become. By likening her to a villain, Kimmel was suggesting that Green was taking herself way too seriously, and that her reaction to the joke was as absurd as something you'd see in a comic book. By now, the whole thing had become a spectacle. What started as a simple joke on a late-night TV show had spiraled into a full-blown social media war. People on both sides weighed in, with some supporting Kimmel's right to make jokes and others siding with Green's claims of being victimized by the media. In the end, it seemed like both sides had exhausted themselves. Green had made her point, Kimmel had made his, and the online chatter began to die down. But the underlying message of this entire exchange was clear. In today's political world, no one seems to be able to take a joke anymore. And if you're a public figure like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is used to stirring up controversy, it's almost as if you can't be criticized without throwing a tantrum. The whole situation was a perfect storm of political drama, personal insults, and of course, the power of satire. It showed just how fragile some politicians are when it comes to humor, and how quickly a small joke can turn into something much bigger. Another thing about Marjorie Greene's actions is that it reveals a troubling double standard. Marjorie Taylor Greene often portrays herself as a champion of free speech, railing against what she sees as the silencing of conservative voices. Yet here she was dialing the police over a joke. Her reaction speaks volumes about the current state of the political environment. It's fine to dish it out, but taking it? That's another story. The very phrase cancel culture has been weaponized by politicians like Greene to attack their opponents, claiming they're the ones being silenced. But when faced with satire aimed in her direction, Greene's response wasn't to laugh it off or counter it with her own wit. Instead, she sought to silence the comedian by framing the joke as a dangerous threat.
And by the way, I wanted to say, all these crazy people in Congress, all of these low IQ individuals in Congress right now, there's one guy who's responsible for that, and that's Donald Trump.
This isn't just about one joke or one politician. It's about the whole role of humor and holding the powerful accountable. Comedy, especially in the hands of someone like Kimmel, serves as a mirror. It forces us to confront uncomfortable truths, often with a smile. Kimmel's joke wasn't violent, but it was sharp. It showed the inconsistency of Greene's recent comments and behavior, particularly her accusations against fellow Republicans. In politics, where power often shields people from criticism, satire cuts through the noise. It's no wonder authoritarian figures throughout history have feared comedians, because they expose the emperor's lack of clothes. We live in an age where public figures are increasingly unable or unwilling to laugh at themselves. This is more about the role of humor in holding the powerful accountable than it is about one joke or one politician. And it isn't the first time comedy has found itself at the center of political controversy, and it certainly won't be the last. Satire has always walked a fine line, pushing boundaries to make a point. But in today's very partisan climate, where every word is dissected and weaponized, the stakes are higher than ever. Take, for example, the uproar surrounding Will Smith's infamous slap at the 2022 Oscars. Chris Rock's joke about Jada Smith's hair sparked a physical altercation that divided public opinion. Many defended Rock's right to make the joke, while others sympathized with Smith's emotional reaction. The incident mirrored this Kimmel Greene situation in many ways. A comedian doing their job, a public figure overreacting, and the subsequent fallout causing more issues about boundaries and hypocrisy. And now, because she's not received enough attention already, the Green Goblin launched a war on her fellow Republican Mike Johnson. Kimmel said this while discussing Congresswoman Greene's current attempt to have Johnson dismissed as Speaker of the House. Greene is upset because Johnson consented to approve a measure financing to help Ukraine, or, as Kimmel described it, did the unthinkable and compromised with Democrats and moderate Republicans to get something done. Marge plans to file a motion to remove Speaker Johnson next week, but she will not go very far because Democrats have vowed to cross the aisle and vote to rescue Johnson for the sake of the House, Kimmel noted.
Marjorie Taylor Greene is part of, this would actually be funny if it wasn't so stupid and dangerous. Yesterday, files were unsealed in the Trump stolen documents case. They revealed that when the FBI searched Mar-a-Lago in 2022, the agents were authorized to use deadly force if necessary, which is standard operating procedure whenever the FBI execute a search warrant. But in the MAGAverse, it is a plot to kill Donald Trump. Klan Mom led the charge. She wrote, the Biden, DOJ, and FBI were planning to assassinate President Trump and gave the green light. Does everyone get it yet? What are Republicans going to do about it? What a rich imagination this woman has. You'd almost think she has the brain of a child,
Personally, I see comedy as a way to hold people accountable. Satire doesn't just entertain, it challenges. It forces us to confront uncomfortable truths, and yes, sometimes it stings. But that's the price of being in the public eye. If you're a politician making controversial statements, you should expect some pushback. What do you think about how Jimmy Kimmel roasted MTG? Let us know your thoughts down in the comment section below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos just like this one.